Missouri. That's right. We were talking about how great a market it is yesterday, Rico. You remember that?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Missouri revokes 9 out of 48 marijuana social equity licenses, Rico.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Spoke too soon.
Yeah. I see how I set you up for that. That was great. 9 of the 48 marijuana social equity licenses issued by Missouri regulators last fall have been revoked because these applicants were deemed ineligible, they say. 8 of the revoked licenses were issued to out-of-state operators, and 1 was a wholesale facility. Nonprofit news outlet Missouri Independent reported, citing the state's Division of Cannabis Regulation. And they say regulators warned last December that 11 winners of social equity licenses might have been ineligible. One of the companies that lost its license on Wednesday, Frankenstein Enemy in Columbia, worked with Michigan-based Canna-zoned MLS in obtaining its permit. Canna-Zone allegedly submitted 104 applications and won 2 dispensary licenses in Missouri's lottery for social equity permits. Frankenstein Enemy, in a statement to the Independent, called the revocation drastic and unjustified. And in quotes, "We have not been provided with specific reasons or justifications for the revocation, leaving us in a position where we must take appropriate action," Frankenstein Enemy said. In another quote, "The lack of transparency and the apparent predisposition to revoke our license prior to affording us a fair hearing not only impacts our license, but also sets a concerning precedent for the micro businesses program and its intended beneficiaries as a whole." Arizona-based cannabis business advisors who also connected to 400 dispensary applications in Missouri, according to the Independent. 6 of those applications were granted licenses, but saw them revoked on Wednesday. The Division of Cannabis Regulation said it found that applicants or the purported majority owners connected to the applications weren't familiar with the agreements or operations tied to the license, in quotes. While owning and operating a license may include contracting for management services or consulting services, the lack of knowledge, control, agency, or decision-making demonstrated by the individuals whose information was used to meet eligibility does not meet even the most generous interpretation of owning and operating a business, Amy Moore, director of the Division of Cannabis Regulation, said in a statement. Man, they're saying that these people don't have enough smarts to have a business in Missouri, apparently. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. This is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News Hour. What do y'all have to say?
I want to hear Dale.
You got to unmute yourself, Dale. You got to unmute yourself. Mm-hmm. She shakes her head and mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have issues.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I work within multiple social equity programs. I work with governments, and it is a constant battle to try to figure out who is truly deserving. And this isn't a handout. It's just an opportunity to work your ass off. And unfortunately, as fast as regulators can figure out how to set up situations to avoid predatory or just simply unsavory behavior or the wrong, not for whom it was intended. There's 10 more lawyers figuring out the loophole, how to get around it, and suing has become part of the business plan.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I do also believe in an opportunity to have your voice heard. Some type of administrative hearing would have been appropriate. And so there also seems to be a potential quick reaction based on really terrible reporting. Now, about that reporting, I have experienced reporting in Missouri, and it is wildly inaccurate more than half the time. They did not seek sources in stories in the past that I have been involved with. So I have to take everything that happens in the Missouri press with a grain of salt at this point, because out of all the reporters that have written stories, I've only found one that was willing to do a fact check. They still didn't write the new facts. They were at least willing to hear it before they ignored it. And so there's layers when it comes to this issue, all the way up through how it's being reported and who is the beneficiary. So, but at the end of the day, due process should stand. And then once it's discovered nefarious behavior, get the fuck out.
I mean, Dale, in all your work in social equity, are you familiar with this type of, because they're saying, because how it sounds, at least how the article reads, it reads as though that they interviewed the main social equity applicants and asked them a series of questions. Have you witnessed any other municipalities in social equity that interview the applicants and like score them based on their knowledge of cannabis and the cannabis industry prior to issuing a license?
Yes, and there was a period of time where licensure was often merit-based, and that is when lawsuits really became part of the business plan, because the scoring, no matter how well done, no matter how blind, no matter how expert, can always be questioned, and that process is costly and expensive. Missouri's first 2 years, I believe, of revenues were spent on defending their program legally, not on the veterans and senior services that they had intended those monies to go towards. And lately, I have seen, honestly, none lately that are merit-based in that same way. However, they're still doing interviews and due diligence to ensure that the individual is in a certain income bracket, that they live where they said they lived, that they, whatever the qualifiers are for that particular social equity program, have been met.
Yeah, but I get that, but like this questionnaire interview style thing that at least I get the impression of when I read this, it sounds like they had like a Zoom meeting or something, and they asked them a series of questions on how cannabis works and who's responsible for this and responsible for that, and it sounds like because of their answers is why they're denying these licenses. And I haven't seen that happen in any other municipality that I can remember.
No, what's described right here, like I said, I would question the details. I don't want to say the validity, because I believe that there was something that happened, but is what is described in the paper what actually happened is what I'm questioning.
Interesting. So you don't think
I'm not familiar with what's happening.
So you don't think it was multiple choice that they gave them?
I think, knowing my experience with the government in Missouri, who I worked for under contract for a year, full disclosure, I worked for the Missouri Department of Health and Human Services, Health and Senior Services, and they were ridiculously careful about researching all the ways other programs have gone wrong and ensuring that any rubric that was set up for this type of activity was unbreachable. We had to undergo a multitude of challenges, and our process had to stand up to those challenges. It was rigorous, it was expensive, it was exhausting. I can't imagine that they would throw all that out and go do some dumb shit like this the way it's described in the press. And again, I'm just going to say, I have not found the press to be accurate in the reporting on these situations. So I would question the validity of how this went down. That said, due process is important for the companies who just lost their license. What that due process was, I think further investigation is warranted before I put out an opinion on that.
Sounds like a follow-up story.
Canna-zoned, they had 2 of those licenses that were revoked. I know that we did report on those back in last December. They were predatory contracts, and they're the ones that were putting out Craigslist ads. Do you want to be a social equity business owner?
I think there was way more due diligence at hand than, hey, do you consider yourself social equity? Yes or no? No. Okay, you're out of here. I'm pretty sure there were a lot of lawyers, a lot of investigation, a lot of proof at hand that is exactly what they were if they were revoked in that sense.